away, and about 50 houses had been destroyed by the torrent. Villages of Waruguru on the slopes of the Uruguru Mountains, Makambaku Range, had also suffered disastrously. If 1/4 of the reports we heard were true, at least 100 people must have perished. The Sultana had fled, and the stronghold of Kibengo was no more. A deep canal that he had caused to be excavated when alive, to bring a branch of the Ungerengeri to his city, which was his glory and boast, proved the ruin of Simbawamweni. After the destruction of the place the river had formed a new bed, about 300 yards from the city. But what astonished us most were the masses of débris which seemed to be piled everywhere, and the great numbers of trees that were prostrate, and they all seemed to lie in the same direction, as if a strong wind had come from the south-west. The aspect of the Ungerengeri valley was completely changed; from a paradise it was converted into a howling waste. We continued our march until we reached Olagala, and it was evident as we advanced that an unusual storm had passed over the land, for the trees in some places seemed to lie in swathes. A most fatiguing and long march brought us to Musudi, on the eastern bank of the Ungerengeri, but before long we reached it we realized that a terrific destruction of human life and property had occurred. The extent and nature of the calamity may be imagined when I state that nearly 100 villages, according to Masudi's report, were swept away. Masudi, the Diwan, says that the inhabitants had gone to rest as usual, as they had done ever since he had settled in the valley 25 years ago, when, in the middle of the night, they heard a roar like many thunders, which woke them up to the fact that death was at work in the shape of an enormous volume of water, that, like a wall, came down, tearing the tallest trees with it, carrying away scores of villages at one fell, sure swoop, into utter destruction. The scene 6 days after the event, when the river has subsided into its normal breadth and depth during the monsoons, is simply awful. Wherever we look, we find something very suggestive of the devastation that has visited the country. Fields of corn are covered with many feet of sand and débris. The sandy bed the river has deserted is about a mile wide, and there are but 3 villages standing of all that I noticed when en route to Unyanyembe. When I asked Masudi where the people had gone to, he replied, "God has taken most of them, but some have gone to Udo." The surest blow ever struck at the tribe of the Wakami was indeed given by the hand of God, and to use the words of the Diwan, "God's power is wonderful, and who can resist him?" I again resort to my diary and extract the following. April 30th. Passing Msuwa, we travelled hurriedly through the jungle which saw such hard work with us when going to Unyanyembe. What dreadful odours and indescribable loathing this jungle produces! It is so dense that a tiger could not crawl through it; it is so impenetrable that an elephant could not force his way. Were a bottle full of concentrated miasma, such as we inhale herein, collected, what a deadly poison, instantaneous in its action, undiscoverable in its properties, would it be! I think it would act quicker than chloroform, be as fatal as prussic acid. Horrors upon horrors are in it. Boas above our heads, snakes and scorpions under our feet. Land crabs, terrapins, and iguanas move about in our vicinity. Malaria is in the air we breathe. The road is infested with hot water ants, which bite our legs until we dance and squirm about like madmen. Yet somehow we are fortunate enough to escape annihilation, and many another traveller might also. Yet here, in verity, are the 10 plagues of Egypt, through which a traveller in these regions must run the gauntlet. 1. Plague of boas. 2. Red ants or hot water. 3. Scorpions. 4. Thorns and spear cacti. 5. Numerous impediments. 6. Black mud knee deep. 7. Suffocation from the density of the jungle. 8. Stench. 9. Thorns in the road. 10. Miasma. May 1st. Kingaru Hera. We heard news of a great storm having raged at Zanzibar, which has destroyed every house and every ship, so the story runs, and the same destruction has visited Bagamoyo and Winde, they say. But I am by this time pretty well acquainted with the exaggerative tendency of the African. It is possible that serious loss has been sustained. from the evidence of the effects of the storm in the interior. I hear also that there are white men at Bagamoyo, who are about starting into the country to look after me. Who would look after me? I cannot imagine. I think they must have some confused idea of my expedition, though how they came to know that I was looking for any man I cannot conceive, because I never told a soul until I reached Unyanyembe. May 2nd. Rusako. I had barely arrived at the village before the 3 men I dispatched from Mvumi, Ugogo, entered, bringing with them from the generous American consul a few bottles of champagne, a few pots of jam, and 2 boxes of Boston crackers. These were most welcome after my terrible experiences in the Makata Valley. Inside one of these boxes, carefully put up by the consul, were 4 numbers of the Herald, one of which contained my correspondence from Unyanyembe, wherein were some curious typographical errors, especially in figures and African names. I suppose my writing was wretched, owing to my weakness. In another are several extracts from various newspapers, in which I learn that many editors regard the expedition into Africa as a myth. Alas! it has been a terrible earnest fact with me, nothing but hard, conscientious work, privation, sickness, and almost death. 18 men have paid the forfeit of their lives in the undertaking. It certainly is not a myth, the death of my 2 white assistants. They, poor fellows, found their fate in the inhospitable regions of the interior. One of my letters received from Zanzibar by my messenger states that there is an expedition at Bagamoyo called the Livingstone Search and Relief Expedition. What will the leaders of it do now? Livingstone is found and relieved already. Livingstone says he requires nothing more. It is a misfortune that they did not start earlier, then they might with propriety proceed and be welcomed. May 4th. Arrived at Kingware's Ferry, but we were unable to attract the attention of the canoe paddler. Between our camp and Bagamoyo we have an inundated plain that is at least 4 miles broad. The ferrying of our expedition across this broad watery waste will occupy considerable time. May 5th. Kingware, the canoe proprietor, came about 11 a.m. from his village at Gongongi, beyond the watery plain. By his movements I am fain to believe him to be a descendant of some dusky king log, for I have never seen in all this land the attributes and peculiarities of that royal personage so faithfully illustrated as in Kingware. He brought 2 canoes with him, short, cranky things, in which only 12 of us could embark at a time. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon before we arrived at Gongongi village. May 6th. After impressing Kingware with the urgent necessity of quick action on his part, with the promise of an extra $5 gold piece, I had the satisfaction to behold the last man reach my camp at 3:30 p.m. An hour later, and we are en route, at a pace that I never saw equalled at any time by my caravan. Every man's feelings are intensified, for there is an animated, nay, headlong impetuosity about their movements that indicates but too well what is going on in their minds. Surely my own are a faithful index to their feelings, and I do not feel a whit too proud to acknowledge the great joy that possesses me. I feel proud to think that I have been successful, but honestly I do not feel so elated as at the hope that tomorrow I shall sit before a table bounteous with the good things of this life. How I will glory in the hams, and potatoes, and good bread! What a deplorable state of mind, is it not? Ah, my friend, wait till you are reduced to a skeleton by gaunt famine and coarse, loathsome food, until you have waded a Makata swamp and marched 525 miles in 35 days through weather such as we have had, then you will think such pabula food fit for gods. Happy are we that, after completing our mission, after the hurry and worry of the march, after the anxiety and vexation suffered from fractious tribes, after tramping for the last 15 days through mire and Stygian marsh, we near Beulah's peace and rest. Can we do otherwise than express our happiness by firing away gunpowder until our horns are emptied, then shout our hurrahs until we are hoarse, than, with the hearty, soul-inspiring Yambos, greet every mother's son fresh from the sea? Not so. Think the Wangwana soldiers, and I so sympathize with them that I permit them to act their maddest without censure. At sunset we entered the town of Bagamoyo. More pilgrims come to town, were the words heard in Beulah.